Meetings are recorded, so with all your permission, I will go ahead and record this meeting. So welcome everyone. This is our bi-weekly all hands project managers meeting. And today we have our guest speaker, Dave Asprey. And the topic that we'll be discussing is around project ideation to execution, getting through our, the project management or project manager mindset and how to run projects from his background and experience. He's the CEO of Upgrade Labs, and he will talk more about what that's about. And he's the founder of Bulletproof Coffee and the created $3 billion business categories. He's a 4-time New York Times bestselling science author and is the host of the podcast called The Human Upgrade with 200 million downloads. He has also worked with elite athletes to optimize their performance. And he also has hospital and IT experience background early in his career, and he'll talk more about that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ian to help us moderate this session. We'll be doing a chat and questions type format like previous speakers. If you have any questions, please post them on the chat, Zoom chat. And also, you can also raise your hands and then we can call on you if you want to ask the question verbally. We can do that too. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ian first and then to Dave.
Thank you so much, Sankar. And for the folks joining in, if your background allows, I would love to be able to see you on camera, so to make it more interactive and intimate in a way. So again, Dave, thank you for your time. I'd love to start out your background, and we can maybe start with your hospital background. That's a very interesting way to start, and your journey to where you are now.
All right. Well, I actually studied computer information systems in my undergrad. And I went to work for a company called Gould Medical Foundation in Modesto, California, where I ran all of their help desk and support for 500 doctors across 7 locations spread across the city by myself. And I learned that the only people probably worse than doctors to support are maybe investment bankers or possibly attorneys, but generally doctors are, I can stop a human heart, I will not touch my mouse, or trackpad as the case may be. So it's a really rough environment, and it's super highly regulated. In my career, I ran virtualization strategy for Citrix. I was a co-founder of the professional services group at Exodus Communications, the company that invented web hosting in the data center business. Which we grew to, my business unit, we grew to 100 million a quarter in revenue, providing IT services for people. I was on IBM's highest level advisory board, and I was VP of cloud security at Trend Micro as my last job in the field. But I went from being operational in IT. I was operational at 3Com as well in an IT role, systems analyst kind of stuff. But I eventually realized I should be building tools for people like us instead of being people like us. I also looked at getting PMI certified and learned that I'm actually the world's worst project manager. You guys have dark wizardry skills that I deeply respect. I do not know how you do it. I actually am physically incapable of doing your job, which is why I think what you do is really important and underrepresented in importance. Like, I can build architecture, but to actually like harass people into doing what they said they were going to do, that's legit. Right. And it also costs you something, right?
I'll update my resume and put harassing people.
We like to call that high EQ, not harassment, but there you go.
Yeah, babysitting skills is a good way to do it. But I just want to be clear, this is lawful harassment, because I've had to go through those courses in California about unlawful harassment. So whatever, but so that's my background. But along the way, I started, I got some burnout. Exodus Communications, Silicon Valley, working all kinds of hours. When Salesforce was 8 guys, I helped to design their architecture. Like that kind of a thing. There's so much cool stuff going on. The Facebook, Google was 2 guys and 2 servers when they came to us. But it was one of those, you never sleep, constant stress, which is just endemic in IT now. And I hit the burnout thing. I hit 300 pounds. And the brain fog was to the point I bought disability insurance, because I'm like, I can't even remember what's going on in meetings. I want to be a CTO, not a CIO, but sometimes I can't bring it. And so I was the quintessential Jolt Cola drinking 300-pound computer hacker from Jurassic Park, and the original one, the good one. And now I realized a lot of the systems architecture stuff I was working on, like the first horizontal scaling, load balancing, like how do we have servers where one guy can manage 1 million computers instead of one guy managing 5 computers, which was how it started in the mid 90s. And I realized that we were seeing emergent behaviors in networks and in cloud computing, things that were unpredictable, like router flaps. Even to this day, Google or Facebook has an outage, like, oh, sorry, someone misconfigured a router. And I'm just laughing, going, God, we've been doing this for 30 years. You think we'd fix it? But along the way, I realized I'm going to have to hack my own biology. And what I realized, and a lot of what I'm saying is coming out in 6 days. A book hits the shelves. It's pre-orderable, but there is something going on inside your body that is very similar to distributed architecture in IT systems, and it affects how you behave as a project manager. It directly controls the babysitting skills that Kimberly talked about in the chat. And I call it the Meat operating system. So Steve Jobs has the Mac OS and I have the Meat OS. And like, what are you talking about? I'm assuming with you guys that most of you are familiar with the idea of latency in systems. I am at this point in my brain evolution, I am more of a systems architect, network architect, than I am a developer or God forbid, a project manager, because I would just fail. But if I use words that are like too out of what you do, you have to tell me if I'm getting too nerdy. But the idea of latency, how long does it take for something? Here's something that's going to freak you out probably, because we're all smart people. If I do this, I clap my hands. Well, that there was an amount of time from my hand clap to the microphone. There was a conversion from the digital to analog, or the analog to digital. It goes through some fiber, some conversions, some IP stack using OSI model, goes through distributed routing, and it gets to you. And then as soon as it comes out of your speaker, you hear it, right? That's pretty normal. So it's a very small amount of latency from the system, maybe 30 milliseconds on average. Well, if I hook electrodes up to your brain, and when I say this, I actually run a company called 40 Years of Zen that does decades of meditation in 5 days using a computer hooked up to your brain. And I've spent 6 months of my life with a computer hooked up to my brain. Tell me what the heck it's doing. What you're going to find is that for an average brain, for someone who's middle-aged, there is 350 milliseconds. So a third of a second roughly of delay between when the sound hits your body and when your brain gets the first electrical wiggle that a sound happened. So there is a third of a second of missing time all of the time, and you can't see it, and I can't see it. And you might have heard this in some paper. Right in the middle of each of your eyes, there's a blind spot the size of a dime. I mean, Ian, you don't see that, do you?
No.
I don't either. So provably, there is a system inside of you, something that is hiding a missing third of a second from reality, and it's hiding blind spots right in front of your vision, and you cannot see them. But those are indisputable, provable facts, reliably provable. So there's a system that's doing that, and it has to have some level of intelligence, and it does. And that's the notion behind much of biohacking. The book, by the way, you guys can get the book. It won't change my life if you do or don't. It's called Smarter, Not Harder. You can get it on Amazon. And that's where I talk about the Meat operating system. And what that does is it takes reality, it filters reality based on a set of programmatic principles, and then it shows you a small slice of reality. And that means that everything you hear from those mean people who are yelling at you about the project you're managing, or the people who won't pick up the phone, the people who are procrastinating, what you say, what you do runs through a set of invisible filters that take a third of a second to run before it hits their consciousness. It also means that what they say and do back to you is time delayed, and it is filtered by your body. What your body's job is to take what it senses in reality, convert it into a user interface that you can handle. Because if you had to take every signal that goes into your body into your brain couldn't handle it. And this makes sense. Every cell in your body has between, well, technically zero, but most cells in your body have between about 100 and 15,000 little sensors, each of which operates as an individual decision-making node that runs very, very simple compute cycles. And based on what those individual compute nodes, think cloud computing here, they've sensed the environment and they decide what to do. And the decision on what to do is, well, what's going on outside, temperature, light, sound. They also vote with each other in a process called quorum sensing that looks ridiculously like some network protocols and exactly like some crypto protocols for establishing trust. So your cells are doing all of this in that third of a second when they're deciding what they're going to show you in reality. Wow, that's interesting, because what if you could hack them? Because they don't really listen to you because they're faster than you and they're pissed off that you're inside there because you're this big, dumb, slow thing that keeps taking them off their track, right? So you have a high speed, low intelligence system keeping your body alive, and you have a low speed, high intelligence system feeling frustrated at what your body keeps doing without your knowledge or permission. And it makes you act like a jerk. It makes you feel overwhelmed and stressed when you don't need to be. The definition of biohacking, when I figured this stuff out, and it's an evolving thing, is the art and science of changing the environment around you and inside of you so you have control of your own biology. It's literally how do you hack yourself, but the way you do it is by changing the environment. And recognizing that there's an invisible system that you can manipulate inside of you and inside of the people you work with, it's kind of a big deal. And one of the things that stops projects the most, and this is after having brain scans of 1,500 high-performing entrepreneurs at 40 years of Zen, and after working with leaders in personal development for 20 years. One of the things that takes projects off track the most is shame. It's guilt. And what happens is your operating system, it learns very, very early in life that some things are dangerous when they're not. And one of the biggest ones is your parents yelling at you, your tribe excommunicating you, because when you're 5 years old and you're going to get excommunicated, your body, being dumb, doesn't understand context. And it goes, well, if I get abandoned, I can't feed myself and the tigers will eat me. Therefore, terror, therefore, don't ever look at that again. Therefore, erase it from my reality. So when you see someone procrastinate who says, I'll do it tomorrow, and they never do it, there is a part of their operating system that believes that if they do it, they might fail. And if they fail, no one will love them. And if no one loves them, they'll die. And that's the root of procrastination in all humans, is fear of dying. And it's dumb. And what that means is, if you can create a sense of safety for someone who is procrastinating on a project, they will magically stop procrastinating. And some of you already know this. In fact, I laugh. I'm going to pick on Kimberly again. It seems like you probably have figured this out at some level because you described it as babysitting, because that's the part of people that's acting out, is acting up, but they can't see it. They're not choosing to do that. What happens is the body, the operating system, gets a signal, it creates a feeling, and then the body sends it to the brain, and the brain says, well, there must be a reason for the signal, and it looks around and it blames you. It blames their spouse. It blames the computer that just won't work despite the fact that they're moving the power supply, not the mouse. You know, like whatever the thing is going on, they're going to find a reason for it. And the fact that it comes from an invisible system that is designed to hide it as much as it is that blind spot in front of your eyes or the latency in reality. So, Mike, you asked me just a killer question here. How do you help your teams feel safe? Well, there's a team safety thing. In fact, Google figured this out. If you, in fact, use a search engine other than Google, because they're entirely corrupt and they're going to try and sell you a toothbrush if you Google. So use like Bing or something. Use a search engine and see the Google culture document about creating team safety. They probably have the most science on how to do this. But there's team level safety, which is letting people know they won't be excommunicated from the team. And I think you've got to do some of that as a project manager. But some of what it comes down to is identifying, that one person who's the problem on a project, right? And sometimes, look, they might have Asperger's syndrome. By the way, I had Asperger's syndrome until my mid-30s, and I fixed that. That's what all the engineers are on projects for their ADHD or Asperger's or somewhere on that spectrum. It's exceptionally common. It doesn't have to be that way. It's just more likely than not. They have a slightly different operating system, but even then, they just don't know the feelings below their neck. It's not that they're not there. So their UI to their operating system is very noisy. So the icons aren't always in the same place, and they're blinking in and out of existence. And sometimes they can find them, sometimes they can't. And then they act accordingly, and it looks like being an asshole to you and me. It's not. It's just a very static UI. So taking aside that group of people, what you find is that you're going to find that one person, and it may just be as simple as sitting down with them and talking about times where you failed, projects have failed, and things were okay. And this is like the therapist side of being a project manager. By the way, when I decided that I was going to be PMI certified when I was a systems analyst at 3Com, an old networking company, I was still running the Asperger's ADHD operating system, which is maybe why I was really bad at the job. But the amount of empathy that it takes in a one-on-one basis, and it's not going to look like a normal, you have to do this, we have deliverables, we're all in our head. It's a heart thing. And now I'll sound really, really creepy in a way that'll probably, for some people may resonate, some people won't. There's a mode that humans can go into that I know about because I have gone to Mount Kailash and the Himalayas and the Andes, and I've been around, and I do this in my neurofeedback program. I teach execs how to do it. There's a thing you can do where you sit down and you look at a person, and it's called open-heartedness, but you have to run through something called the reset mode. It is in the final chapter of Smarter Not Harder. But this is where you become less responsive. Reset mode is turning off notifications in your brain. So that if you have less notifications, you have more focus. What you're going to find is that if you can calm your own nervous system and sit down with someone and look at them and do the thing that you do when you're running the reset mode, and most people will pick that up and feel it, and they'll actually feel calm, and they'll just do it. They'll just do the thing you needed them to do. Now, Mike's is like, okay, he needs that off switch. And that's what I'm suspecting that most of us on the call are really looking at. It's like, all right, you're tweaked, right? Because you have way too many projects, you have way too many people not doing what they want to do, and you're spinning all up here in your head. So your job is actually to get grounded so that you can, oh yeah, there's stuff spinning up there, but I am like so present with you right now. I'm going to talk to you, and I'm going to slow down my voice, and I'm going to tell you, when you do this one thing that you need to do for the project, it's going to change everything. And you see how I slowed my voice? Okay, I am a high bandwidth communicator. I talk like this, I think like this. In fact, and it hurts me physically to talk like this. And when I was married for 17 years to someone where I could only talk like this, because that was what worked for her nervous system, I couldn't handle it, and neither could she. And so we, as dear friends, decided we didn't want to do that anymore. The modulation of that tone, when you're dealing with the most tweaked people on the team, literally will open doors that you would not imagine, and it may slow things down for you. But let's figure out how to get you guys the off switch and how to get you more power, right? And that's the entire point of Smarter Not Harder, is that many of the practices that you'd think would work, they take more time and they have a low ROI. So one of the simple things you'd say is, in fact, how many of you, just kind of by raise of hands or a little votey thing, how many of you actually do cardio 3 times a week for 30 minutes or more? Okay. So maybe 20%. We know that having cardiovascular endurance helps, but here's the thing, guys. There is a technique using AI where if you can do 5 minutes 3 times a week, that's 15 minutes total, you get 6 times better results than doing an hour a day, 5 days a week of cardio. So I don't do cardio. Cardio takes a huge amount of time. Most people who do it are doing it because they're trying to burn off hormones or they're trying to get endorphins so that they can get their little hit of opiates from exercise, which is fine if that's your thing. But a lot of times that comes out of time with your kids, it comes out of relationships, it comes from somewhere else. So you can get a 12% improvement in your VO2 max, which is your cardiorespiratory thing, in 5 minutes, 3 times a week, no sweat required. It's barely even effort. So there you go. Ian's like, it's an excuse for him to use Lululemon. Nice. Yeah, I've got the yoga pants too, I admit it. So what you'll find is there's a bunch of very high ROI activities for whatever your goal is on that. So to have the calmness that comes, but to take almost no time to do it is important. But there's 2 tools aside from the reset process that I'm going to share with you to help you manage your own tweakness. And these are both documented in the book. And I keep referencing the book because I am not going to be able to communicate everything that would be helpful for you in the time that we have together. So I just don't want to feel like I'm missing anything. The number one thing you could do is something I've done with even billionaire clients. It's called heart rate variability, or HRV biofeedback. If you have a watch or a ring that tracks your sleep, it gives you an overnight, how's my heart rate variability? What I'm talking about is a device called Heart Math. In 2008 or something, I was on their advisory board, but I don't have any financial ties to the company. And it costs $200, and you clip it to your ear, and then you turn on your phone and you take a deep breath the way the light says to do, and then you breathe out. Okay. We can do that right now. Let's take a deep breath. Let's breathe out. Except it's probably not really going to do anything. So when you use the app and it's measuring the spacing between your heartbeat, it turns out stressed humans, like project managers, we have a very evenly spaced heartbeat. So if it's 60 beats a minute, it's going to be perfectly synchronized. That's someone who's actually closer to death and actually very stressed. And if you were to go talk to someone who is an expert in reading EKGs and ask them about heart rate variability, they'll tell you the same thing. So what you can do is you can learn to consciously, and it doesn't take much time. It takes about 10 minutes a day, several days a week, 4 or 6 weeks to learn how to do this. So it's not a big investment of time. You can learn to sense when your heartbeat is even, and you can learn how to make it so it has more variability. So same number, same 60 beats per minute, but now the beats are spaced out randomly instead of evenly spaced. Randomly spaced is I'm calm and peaceful. Evenly spaced is something's hunting me. And what you'll find by doing this practice is this is years of meditation, because we have real-time feedback. You can just do things. What you're going to find is when your body starts to go into fight or flight, you're going to be in a meeting, someone's going to say something, you're like, oh, look, there you go. It's flipping over to that red mode from the little video game thing. Let me do the thing that makes it go green again. And my favorite story about this, I had a hedge fund manager, and I told him to do this. And of course, hedge fund managers are worse than doctors. They won't do anything they don't want to do because, they rule the world. And he finally got the device and he used it on his private plane. And he called me, he said, Dave, I finally did it on the airplane and it actually felt really good. So I'm going to do this. And 6 weeks later, he's like, I've mastered it. I'm on the highest level. I'm green all the time. And he went into the office and he put it on just to see what would happen. And as soon as the market open bell rings, it turns red, and he stays in fight or flight mode all day long. And he's like, damn it. So it took him another 6 weeks to train to be in a state of calmness, no matter what was happening around him. And he said it made his trading better, and he'd come home at night and he was happy to be with his kids. And you guys can do the same thing. What this is the first step on building what I'm describing in the resilience part of Smarter Not Harder is there's 3 stages of basically becoming more grounded. And this comes from my travels in the East, in Tibet. First level, and you all have this already because you can do your job, is empathy. So you have learned the ability to have some empathy with people so you can figure out what the heck they're thinking. And you're all probably better at it than me. And kudos for that. So there's empathy. Comes first. You can feel someone else's things so you can see what's going on in a project. So you've got your spreadsheets, you got your Gantt charts, you got your critical paths, and you know that one person who's going to be the problem, and you just know. That's awesome. The thing above that, though, is compassion. and that is automatically wishing well for others, even if they're fucking up your project. Okay. And that's hard. And to do it automatically instead of consciously, the first step is to, well, I feel empathy. Okay, now I'm going to, realize I'm pissed off at this person. I'm going to figure out how to not be pissed off and how to see things from their point of view and how to move it forward. And the highest level is equanimity, which is above that, which is I can choose my state and stay in my chosen state no matter what's happening in the world around me. So imagine if you were to go into the project meeting and you've got your execs over here and they're all pissed off and you've got all these things and you walk in and you're totally at peace and no one in that room can ruffle you. And it doesn't even, there's no effort involved, because what we do in business, and I have an MBA from Wharton, like I've, board meetings, I've done all that shit. I keep swearing because I guess I can. It's UCLA. But what you find is you go in and you're feeling a certain way, but we all know how to put on our game face. So you're sitting in there, everyone knows you're pissed off at them and you're like, have a nice day. And there's like there's a knife in there and we all feel it, we all see it. You don't want to be doing that because it's neurologically and biologically too expensive for you. Right? You want to be able to go in and actually truly want them to have a nice day, even if they're totally screwing up your project, because it just costs you less. Right? So this is about internal state management, and that heart rate variability training is the first thing you can do. So when you feel like someone would have gotten under your skin, you feel it happening, and then you have a signal and you can use that to turn it off. All of that stuff is happening in the hidden parts of your operating system. You are the application sitting on top of your operating system, and your operating system runs on a hardware platform called your body, which runs in a data center called the planet. And then that's just how it works. So there are hacks you can do to your hardware, like that thing I talked about with the AI-driven exercise, where you can make your hardware platform more resilient. The more resilient your body is, the more resilient you are in meetings, the more you can handle stress. And the more you turn off those notifications that come up all the time, if your phone or your computer is binging all the time, you can't get any work done. What's happening is that you're getting alerts from your hardware if you're not eating the right stuff, or if you don't have enough minerals, or things are off in your body. But more likely than that, you're getting notifications from your software layer, from your operating system layer going, something's wrong. That might be a tiger, that might be a threat. And it's just a constant barrage of these things. And you're trying to focus through that. So you can learn to turn down the notification with heart rate variability and with the reset process I describe in the book. And then there are things you can do to increase your ability to focus. And right now, my guess is you have a decent ability to focus, because if you're going to be able to really do deep project management work, you go into kind of an altered state and you're looking at a really complex set of data and you're somehow able to see the path. And of course, you're using all the tools like Microsoft Project to prevent you from getting anything done, and then whatever other tools you use in order to make yourself actually get work done. At least that's my take on Microsoft Project. It seems like it causes more trouble than it solves, but that's just me. Maybe that's old. Anyway,
we have a private label tool called UPlan that probably fits that bill pretty well too.
Nice. So, like, we all have one of those. Like, you need a system, but it doesn't have to be this one. But if you switch to another one, it's probably just as bad, right? Yeah. But you have the ability to go into this state where you're able to visualize and able to see, and then able to compare that to the humans in the equation to see what's going to happen, and to be able to go in and influence, which is really kind of magical. But you have some ability to focus, but focus takes energy, and putting on a game face when you have lots of notifications takes energy. So your body's job is to take 30 pounds of air and some amount of food every day and turn it into electricity and hormones and proteins and all the other stuff. Even serotonin and melatonin is made in your cells, not just in specific organs in the body. So if you have this amount of electricity, what if your hardware platform could actually make more electricity than it does today? It turns out it can. And if you think in terms of efficiency metrics, do you believe that your body is 100% efficient at converting food and air into electricity? No, it's actually highly variable. And if you don't believe me, get really, really shitty drunk tonight, and then wake up tomorrow morning and be reminded of how bad you can be at making energy when there's toxins in your system. By the way, I don't recommend you actually do that, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like there are variable states. So a lot of biohacking actually is making sure your system does a better job than a better job of that. So more electricity to handle it makes a big difference. And you can also be better at focus. So to answer the question about focus, focus sits mostly in the prefrontal cortex, the front of the brain. And you can learn to move more blood into the front of your brain. And this is also a technology. It's called HEG. I started using this 12 years ago. And I think it's 20 minutes of HEG training reduces your ADHD score by 1 point permanently. So if you wanted to train yourself to focus, now there's a consumer device called Mendi, MENDI, and you buy it, and it's like a cool headband. It looks like Geordie's eye mask from The Next Generation, but it goes on your forehead. And it shows you whether your brain it has blood in the front or not, and you play a little game on your screen that teaches you to move blood. So now focus costs you less than it did before. What would you do with effortless focus instead of effortful focus? Your job would be easier and you'd have more energy at the end of the day. Yeah, I've done this. I've done everything I can electrically and blood flow wise to modify my brain so that it works better, frankly, because it was really, really not in a good place in my mid-20s. So I was like, I had to do remedial work, not necessarily for becoming Professor X, although I'm down for that too. So there's two things, heart rate variability training and Mendi. And I'm looking at a question here from Sandeep Kumar. How to keep calm when an actual event happens, like a tiger comes in front of you, layoff news or some medical results. Okay, it's a beautiful question, because the thing your body does that's great is it actually protects you from tigers. So let's say you accidentally lean on a hot stove. You're going to immediately jerk your hand away and you're going to say, wow, good thing I moved my hand so fast. You might argue that you just took credit for your body moving your hand, because I don't think anyone goes, man, that feels really hot. I had to move my hand, because we know there's a third of a second delay there. And so no, your body, poof, and we're just trained by our operating system. We're trained to just take credit for everything our body does automatically, right? And it's useful because if a tiger jumps out, it will dump cortisol and adrenaline, and it'll get ready to fight, right? Or it's going to jump and run. Your fight or flight response is very strong. And things feel like death. So like if a tiger comes in front of you, what a healthy animal and a healthy human will do is something you'll see in a National Geographic video. The tiger chases the deer or antelope, whatever the heck it is in Africa. And if the deer gets away, as soon as the threat's gone, it'll stop. It'll shake its whole body like this, which is it dumping adrenaline and stress hormones. And then it starts eating grass again, and the emergency is over and we're done. So what we do, because we have our operating system, that's what our body would do if we weren't in there. But our mind is in there too. So our mind gets caught up and goes, no, it might come back, it might come back. So then we stay in that fight or flight mode for a very long period of time. So one of the first innovations for this is called adaptogenic herbs. And you can Google Dave Asprey adaptogen. Here, I'll type it in the chat, just what that is. And these are herbs that were originally made by China and Russia thousands of years ago. They give them to soldiers. What they do is they allow your body to more quickly turn on a stress response and more quickly turn it off. So if you think about area under the curve of stress, stressor comes on, stays stressed for a long period of time. But if the stress comes on and then turns off quickly when it's gone, you have a lot more energy. So they found that troops would stay tweaked after a fight for a long time, or they could give them herbs that made them turn off their tweak when they were done. I take adaptogens I have for 25 years. They make you perform better and feel better. And it's worth doing. And the ones I use are in my blog posts about that. So that's one way to keep calm. The other thing is a really simple hack. And breath work is something that I work to introduce into the world of biohacking. It's like for a dozen years. And there's now a conference called the Biohacking Conference. It's in its It's ninth year officially, but 11th year because of COVID. It's called the Biohacking Conference, and there's 4,000 people who show up to talk about this stuff. And it's in June in Orlando. And it's kind of crazy that it's gone from 100 people to 4,000 people, but we're all working on this issue. And one of the things that happens there is with breath work, and I have instructors who come in and do this, is that we've learned the ratios of respiration. So in a hospital setting, you can look at someone's heartbeat and you can use that to determine what their respiration is like. And I know this because I was CTO and co-founder of the first company to get heart rate from the wrist. It was called Basis. Intel bought us for $100 million. It's what your Apple Watch or your Google Watch does today. It's just built in, but it used to be a whole separate device. So we could tell you 13.2 breaths per minute from this. But again, the spacing of the breath really matters. So here's the trick. The tiger's gone, or you heard some bad news. If your out breath is 50% longer than your in breath, it will move the body from fight or flight into parasympathetic mode. So if you've done the heart rate variability training I'm talking about, and you learn, very simple thing, you can do it with me. We're going to breathe in for 5 seconds. So breathe out right now. You're going to go just 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now your lungs are full. We're going to hold it for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to breathe out for 10 seconds if you can. I did a pretty long one. 1, slow breath out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then you can just take a normal breath. Do a round of 3 of those. And it might just be 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out, whatever your body can do. If you've never done any kind of breath work, you'll find that holding your lungs empty is incredibly difficult. It turns on your fight or flight response. If you practice yoga, or maybe you've done something more advanced like Art of Living out of India. I see a bunch of people who look like they're, from their names anyway, come from India. Certainly most of the companies I worked for were there. I actually just interviewed Sri Ravi Shankar, who's a leader of a movement of breath work that has 50 million followers, including a lot of IT executives. And what you'll find there is just double your out breath and do that 3 times. So you get the big news. And that is a direct interface to your operating system to tell it to get out of fight or flight, because you cannot do that if there's a real tiger. And that is just the fastest way I know of to get out of it. So if you combine that with heart rate variability, that's amazing. And then I am going to go with a tried and true technique to have more energy that you may have heard of at this point, because I'm pretty well known for it. And it's called bulletproof coffee. Today, my newest coffee company is called Danger Coffee. And because who knows what you might do? Like, if you feel this good, you might get a raise. I mean, who knows? But that's dangercoffee.com. But take the coffee you drink, even if it's the bad coffee from your employer. I'm assuming UCLA doesn't splurge on coffee. I will say, though, USC did have bulletproof coffee on campus. I just wanted to say that, you know.
Just throwing it out there.
Anyway, and by the I don't run Bulletproof anymore. I'm off the board, but I still own a bunch of it. But if you were to take whatever you drink in the morning, whatever coffee or tea, and you were to blend it in a blender or a really good frother with a teaspoon or 2 of butter and some of the MCT oil, the reason that does so much is it makes it easier for your body to make electricity. And people feel so much calm. One of the reasons you may be feeling anxiety is if you're eating stuff that causes a blood sugar swing, or you have a drop in blood sugar, you actually are going to get stress hormones. If you wake up at 4 a.m, especially sweating with racing thoughts, that's stress hormones. And when your body loses blood sugar regulation, the easiest way to raise your blood sugar is to dump cortisol and adrenaline, because their role is to break down muscle to give you blood sugar quickly to get away from the tiger. So if you wake up in the middle of the night with that thing, well, what's going on is whatever you ate for dinner gave you unstable blood sugar, or your metabolism is starting to fail, you're getting type 2 diabetes. Then the body says, I'm going to keep the brain running. Here's some cortisol. And it doesn't care if you have racing thoughts all night, because it just cares that it had enough fuel in the brain. So there are things you can do that are in my books. Mike, it's butter and MCT oil, and the C8 MCT oil. I use Brain Octane. I invented it. I made MCT a $1 billion category. So I like that one, but anything that says C8 MCT oil, just a teaspoon or 2. And if you take too much of it, it will give you disaster pants. So do not do what most, especially men, will do, which is dump a whole bunch of it. We have some is good, more is better. So I'll just put a cup in there. You will experience disaster pants, and it's just not pleasant. So please be careful. Start slowly.
Dave,
yeah.
Want to circle back to Mike's question.
Mhm.
You mentioned equanimity on the top
Yep.
of that triangle. What are some of the steps that we can do to work our way towards that?
Well, the first thing is to sit down and figure out what triggers you. Right. And now I call me old fashioned, but if you can be triggered, it means that you're carrying some bullets. Like, what's loading your gun? Right. And I know that this is counter to whatever the political correct parts of the world are today. But here's the deal. If you can trigger me, it's my problem. It just is. Right. So if something's triggering you, it's simply you have a notification setting wrong. And what that really looks like is it's probably an old trauma. And it's probably because, someone yelled at you or you were bullied in 3rd grade or whatever the heck it is. And there's multiple sources. And I go deep with like billionaires who have the same shit going on. It's part of having an operating system. Like it's unavoidable. If you're alive, you have this, but it is reprogrammable. That's the last couple chapters in Smarter, Not Harder. The reset process is around when you figure out that you have an issue around something, right? Maybe it's, someone comes in and they roll their eyes at you and you're like, God damn it. Like, I don't know who rolled their eyes at you and pissed you off. I don't have to know, but it'll pop into your head and you run the reset process, which is actually, when you kind of dive deep on it, it is a process based on open-heartedness and forgiveness. And forgiveness means that you stop carrying a grudge, but it's not a conscious grudge. It's an automatic grudge. It's a cron job that's running. Like it's an if-then statement in your body. It's entirely invisible to your conscious brain. It just shows up as like a God damn it, like. So when that happens, like, oh, looks like I'm triggerable. My goal is to be equanimous, whatever you say. And as a parent of 2 teenagers, it's not like any of us are perfect on that. This is a practice, right? But if my kids do something or my coworkers or my team does something and it really pisses me off, why would I waste electricity on being pissed off about that? Because it's probably about them. Right. So then I'll sit down and I'll do the work. Yes, I have a therapist. Yes, I have every piece of technology and I have 7 patents on neuroscience. So I can probably process this pretty quickly because I glue electrodes to my head and I do the exact reset process I teach billionaires. I just do it with a lie detector to make sure that I'm not deceiving myself. But you're not going to do that, but you can do the reset process. And whatever that thing is, that's your biggest button. For a lot of us, it's actually injustice. This is one of my biggest buttons. It's not fair. You ever heard your kids say that to you if you have kids? Yeah, well, newsflash. No, it's not fair, but it doesn't mean you have to whine about it. It doesn't mean you have to feel pain over it. It means if you're not being reactive to it, that you can actually work to fix it. But if you're triggered over that, it doesn't work. And we have all these stories that we believe that are not tested on reality. They're just stories we picked up from society. And each of those takes you further from equanimity. So you can ask yourself as a, technology-driven person, is it true? Is it real? And it turns out most of the things we believe, for instance, hard work gets results. No, it doesn't. The notion, the core thesis in the book that's coming out next week, it took me a long time to come up with this. I call it slope of the curve biology. And it says this: the speed of the onset of a stressor and the speed of turning it off is what drives change. Hard work doesn't work. Efficient work drives results way more than hard work. So a lot of us in there, I'm going to grind it out. That was certainly the first half of my career, but grinding it out, it can get things done. It just doesn't work very well. And the proof of this is that the body adapts 6 times more from doing efficient work than from doing hard work. In just one of the examples, and I have dozens of examples of things you can do to get the certain types of adaptations you want. And all of them rely on this instant on, instant off concept. So it turns out the story about the grind isn't even real. And it's provably not real. But if you're looking to have equanimity, but you believe without testing it, if I work hard, I'm going to win. And then the other guy gets the promotion. right? And then you get real triggered. God, it's not fair. I did everything right, and I got laid off. There's a situation in my career. I'm a VP at Blue Coat Systems, and also Packeteer. We bought them, and some of you've probably seen them in your IT stuff. I'm working for a senior vice president, and I said, look, if I was you, I would lay me off if we're going to go up to that level, because I have an awesome team, and like my team could probably run itself. That means I've done a good job here. If that's going to happen, just let me know. The words were over my dead body. I'm like, okay, cool. The next day I'm on the list, and I'm like, what the fuck? Sorry, I keep swearing, but like this is unjust, and of course it pushes all my buttons, and I get all pissed off and all that. End of the day, I didn't need to get that angry about it. So your job is take a note, whether if you're still using a notepad or whatever app you use. If you get really triggered, you write that down, right on the margins. Like, hey, this really pushed a button. And talk to your therapist. Do the heart rate variability stuff. Do any practice, the reset practice in the book. Specifically, it's like, oh man, I keep getting TikTok alerts on my phone. I'm just going to go into the settings and I'm going to turn off the TikTok alerts. I don't care if my kids have an account there. I don't need to know that, my third cousin just joined. Right? You need to do this for your nervous system. It's the same process. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
So just,
and
Ian and
I
Dave,
think
I just want to do a time check. We have 3 minutes left. I just want to open it up for anyone who wants to ask a verbal questions.
Let's have live questions.
Let's do it.
Anyone?
Don't be shy.
So I think you've said a lot today. Hi, this is Ken. You said a lot. I'm always trying to become more mentally efficient. So what I am hearing in summary is that I should go buy the book and I should practice the exercises that may come out of the book to further clarify everything that we heard today, correct?
If you Google Dave Asprey reset process, I'm pretty sure you'll find it for free. If you go to smarternotharder.com, I think we got that. There's a bunch of free exercise stuff. Like I said, I already got an advance on the book. I'd appreciate it if you bought it, and maybe it'll make the New York Times list. But seriously, I get paid $1 a book. I don't write books for money. It's like I could pull shots of espresso at my coffee shop and get paid more per hour. So I just I concentrate 2,000 hours worth of knowledge into the book. But the reset mode is a way to do it. If you know what this stuff is, you can also, if you're willing to consider working with a local therapist, you can find someone who does a technique called EMDR, eye movement dissociative response, I believe. This is the most rapid way to go for a specific trigger. Like, man, every week I just get so mad about this, and it's just not fair. You go in, there's a reset mode you can put the brain into by moving the eyes in a certain way. And then all of a sudden, now you can go, you know what? That's not fair, and I'm going to choose to make it right, versus it's not fair. One of them gets results. The other one just creates suffering in your life and others.
Wow.
Thanks for the question. Anyone else? All right, so Ian, you want to wrap it up? You have 1 minute.
Yeah, with that, Dave, that was a lot of information that we literally couldn't get from anyone else. Thank you for all the work that you do and trying all this stuff on yourself. That's a lot of courage and a lot to go through, because experiments have mistakes. So I appreciate you doing all of that for us. And guys, if you can, let's get on video and give Dave a big round of applause. Dave, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, guys. You're doing an amazingly challenging and difficult and ununderstood job. So I just want to say thanks for doing that, because project managers actually make the world work, and it's something until you've actually done it. You just don't know the level of complexity that you're managing in your head and with your tools. So please accept my thanks for the work you're doing. And I know you don't get a lot of thanks because people think you're a cog in the machine. They don't understand that you're the one turning the cogs. So much appreciation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Dave.
everyone.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Great stuff, Dave. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark.